Ian, David, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
As always, we want to hear from you this hour, your questions, your comments. You can email us 1a@wamu.org. Arthur, we have this comment at this hour from the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We've got him. That's the word from Governor Cox on a suspect in the murder of Charlie Kirk.
That's really good news because this person was at large, and they had said they had no idea where he was yesterday. And reportedly, he was turned in by a family member. His report says, I guess his father recognized him and alerted authorities, and he had gone to his father. Apparently, I'm sure we're going to find out more as the authorities make a press conference today.
Eva McKend, at this point, do we have any concrete information about motive or any of the other details in the horrible aftermath of this killing?
Those details are still coming into focus, but CNN is reporting the shooting suspect in the killing of Charlie Kirk is a 22-year-old from Washington, Utah, according to a law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. And that tracks with everything that we've heard from authorities so far. They had previously said that this person appeared to be college age and able to blend in with university students.
Washington, Utah, in the southwest corner, the rural kind of remote southwest corner of Utah. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right down by the Nevada border. So some, from what looks to be on a map anyway, a rather remote part of the state. We're going to find out more, of course, about the suspect as the minutes and hours tick on here. The entire nation is watching in the aftermath of the killing of Charlie Kirk. Now, David, on Wednesday, we cast our minds back right after this awful crime. In the middle of the chaos, the country for a couple of hours was not only in a state of shock, but a state of confusion and misinformation caused by the director of the FBI himself. FBI Director Kash Patel made several false claims about the status of the suspect and the case in the moment. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, this is arguably Kash Patel's biggest test so far as FBI director, and in the immediate aftermath of this killing, he fell short. He announced that a suspect was in custody, and that turned out to be not the case, and it did, again, raise questions over his reliability, and critics of Kash Patel would say he's got a history of pushing conspiracy theories and false claims, and was another step in sowing distrust in America's major institutions. And if ever there was a moment when you need reliable information, cool heads, institutions functioning properly, it's this kind, when you have a febrile atmosphere, you have huge tension, you want to be able to trust the American president, the FBI director, and unfortunately Kash Patel did the opposite there.
Well, speaking of an environment of misinformation, disinformation, division, and chaos, which is what we were in, officials in a press conference last night talking about misinformation on social media specifically and urging Americans to be on alert.
What we're seeing is our adversaries want violence. We have bots from Russia, China, all over the world that are trying to instill disinformation and encourage violence. I would encourage you to ignore those.
David, what do we know about what we're hearing there? Warnings that China, Russia use moments of crisis like this to try to divide Americans even further than they already are.
Yeah, I think we've seen that over the past decade. Notoriously, of course, in the 2016 election, when Russia had a field day on social media spreading disinformation. And, we hear endless debates about were they backing Donald Trump or not. But what you often hear intelligence sources say is that really the primary purpose here is just to sow division and distrust and set Americans against each other. And over the past 10 years, we've seen that over and over again in elections, in moments of national crisis such as this one. Not a huge surprise that China and Russia would see an opportunity here. And of course, they get able assistance from many people in the U.S. who, spread these rumors further.
We got this message from Jason, who writes, "Political violence is disgusting. Also, I'm appalled that this man's been lionized by our president and used our tax dollars to transport his body on Air Force Two, J.D. Vance's plane yesterday. He was a known bigot and is no example for Americans. That's Jason's view. And it brings us back to Charlie Kirk, being widely heralded for his leadership in the conservative movement, widely heralded by Republicans and conservatives, including 9/11 commemorations yesterday by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the president himself. Arthur, who was Charlie Kirk? What were his primary messages as an activist, and what was his role in the movement?
Charlie Kirk is one of the most prominent people in the president's orbit. So I think the hagiography of him should be expected. And if you don't like him, excuse it perhaps for a few days. You could think of him as Donald Trump's ambassador to young people. Turning Point, his organization, had chapters on college campuses across the country where he would go and argue with people. And these scenes were parlayed into clips that would be all over TikTok, YouTube. And it was an effective operation. He was involved in Donald Trump's campaign's ground game, and some people have credited him with helping Trump win. I would think of him as a little bit more of a Christian nationalist than Trump himself was in the last week of his life. He was fighting with Van Jones about the murder of this Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, North Carolina. And also he would talk a lot about Islam and say Islam is just incompatible with American society. So a really hard anti-Muslim message that I think was more aggressive than what you get from Donald Trump himself.
Eva McKend, what are you hearing from Republicans, conservatives, elected, non-elected, about what Charlie Kirk, meant to their movement?
Well, I will say more broadly from the jump, every politician of authority, both Democrats and Republicans, have condemned this act and said that despite real differences, political violence is not the path forward. Now, of course, there are many Republicans here in Washington who knew Kirk personally, so they are grieving in a different way. And I would say they feel even more emboldened to carry out or continue to see his movement through. But even Democrats that were on the receiving end of persistent attacks from the MAGA base, like Ilhan Omar, the Minnesota congresswoman, for instance, have said that she vehemently disagreed with the things that Kirk said, but do not believe that he should have been murdered, or anyone for that matter should be senselessly killed like he was.
Well, this is the latest in a string of episodes of political violence in the United States, including the assassination and attempted assassination of two Minnesota state lawmakers back in June. In President Trump's remarks on Kirk's death, part of which we heard at the top of the hour, he did not mention this attack, nor did he mention the assassination attempt of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, whose residence was set on fire during Passover in April. He, in fact, did not list any attempts on Democratic politicians. Here's Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in response on ABC News.
I think it is dangerous when the president cherry picks which political violence he's going to condemn and which he's going to allow to just simply pass. The president missed the mark in his Oval Office address. He should be condemning all political violence.
I want to add that we're going to talk a lot more about the rise of political violence in America on Monday's show on If You Can Keep It, and how we make sense of it in the context of our democracy. David Smith, but as we head to a break here, you heard the governor of Pennsylvania there. You've heard the president's statements this week at a moment of national crisis, which this is. When you look for presidential leadership, how are you digesting what we're seeing now?
Yeah, I mean, just to the earlier point, this really is personal for Donald Trump, and Charlie Kirk was, a close friend of Donald Trump Jr. and, intimately involved in the campaign. But I think the governor is right to point out the inconsistencies here, the contradictions of the response. Republicans should condemn all political violence, but they're quick to accuse Democrats of failing to meet that standard.
You can get the latest on the hunt for a suspect in the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk on the website at NPR.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm running the errand. I'm getting some water. I drink a lot of spring water. I'm getting some more spring water. I don't drink tap water from my faucet. So I'm filling up 2 3-gallon water jugs up and heading back to my house, running my errand. And on my errand, as you always know, I always listen to talk radio. Let me turn my air down here. Got the air going full blast because it's 91 degrees out here. So I got my air going full blast. Turn that down. And I'm listening to talk radio, and they're talking about, I guess his name is Charlie Kirk. First of all, I'm going to say, when it comes to politics and religion, is I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican. I'm not either. I'm an independent. But I'm more conservative. I am more conservative. So, and as far as religion and all that, I'm not into religion, as organized religion. I do believe in God, but I'm not into organized religion. I'm not a liberal, and I'm not a conservative. I'm independent. First of all, get that out the way. As far as this young guy, 31 years old, they say he was a Christian. I think his name is Charlie Kirk. I might be getting it wrong. I haven't heard of this guy until this week. So, and I understand that he's a bona fide Christian and all that. He's against a lot of things that the liberals celebrate, like LGBT or whatever they want to call it. All that. He's against abortion, all that. And unfortunately, from what I've heard, what we've all seen over the last few days, the young man was assassinated. He was assassinated. And which I'm totally against. I don't care if you're a liberal. I don't care if you're a Republican. In this country, we have the right to freedom of speech. No one should be killed or assassinated for what they believe in. But what they believe in. This is ridiculous. And they caught the young guy. I guess the guy was 22 years old, and I guess his father, from what I understand by talk radio, his father is a retirement law enforcement officer of 27 years. His dad is. His dad saw the video and knew it was his son. His father turned him in. His own dad turned him in. It shows you the crazy political state we're in right now. This country is in a crazy mess right now when it comes to a lot of things. People are going crazy over words. People are assassinating people for what they say, which is ridiculous. That is ridiculous, to go out and violently and hurt someone over what they say. I don't care if you're Republican or whether you're a Democrat. It's all nuts. To me, it's all nuts. The guy should not have been assassinated by what he said. Even if you didn't like it. If you didn't like it, so what? Grow up. You're an adult. It's words. All it is words. Words do have power. I understand. Believe me. I understand that words have serious power. And words are the reason why we have laws. Words do have power. That's not what I'm saying. But no one should be assassinated over their words, period. If you didn't like the guy, why didn't you speak out against the guy instead of just taking the guy out? No one should be killed for the words they say. Even if the words to you, in your viewpoint, are evil. Even if the words are evil, no one should be taken out and should be assassinated. That's my view. That's how I feel about it. And, and the sun is going to come up and it's going to go down. People don't realize that. Life is going to go on. That young man is probably going to be, if he's not condemned to be crazy, he's probably going to get capital punishment, y'all. And far as I'm concerned, he probably should get capital punishment. What he did was just tragic. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going over here, get my water, and I'm going to head back home. You guys have a nice day.